It's been like a fire hose of information from all sorts of fronts, but probably the biggest takeaway for me, and I know we've been a part of multiple groups, is that there always seems to be this like kingpin, this one person that's like the leader of it. And obviously it's your group. So at the end of the day, like you are the kingpin, the leader, but it doesn't feel that way from an overall, I don't, not ego, the oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the word. The environment there. There's a better word than that. But anyways, the environment doesn't feel like it's you. You're the person. Like there's so many people willing to jump in and help out and contribute there. And I think that's the biggest thing that sets the Uncaged group apart from any other group is that it's everybody collectively working together. And then it's also nice that it's just a group of guys because I feel like there's not enough guys actually getting together to talk about things real life as well. So really that's the combination of those two things has been a really huge part of why I love Uncaged and am still a part of Uncaged.
No, that's really, really cool, man. And that's, if you're listening, that's what all of this is about. This channel, this group, everything about it, it's about the journey to the top 1%. And how do we get there? It's by becoming 1% better daily. So it's really cool that you said that. And man, Phil, why don't you go ahead and tell the guys who you are, what you're doing? Let's just get into it, man. Let's chop it up.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm first and foremost a Christian, a husband and father of two little girls. Currently, they're 3 and 1 years old. So in the thick of it there. And I have a virtual assistant agency. So we help people, business owners, primarily in the trade space with social media management and office administration tasks such as CRM management, following up on cold or dead leads, and any other office admin type thing that just takes up so much bandwidth. That way, the business owner can work on the business and work with their hammer, so to speak, and be able to do the things that are actually bringing in the money rather than all these tedious admin things.
Love it, man. Buying back your time is definitely a superpower. Yeah, no, man, there was something that you said that I think is just like so powerful about like what we're trying to build here. And because I've always been pretty open about like I built Uncaged selfishly. Like I want to use you guys. Like I want to use you guys as sounding boards. I want to use you guys as accountability. I want to use you guys as an education platform. I want to use you guys as just like having some homies that are like-minded, like having a group of friends that's forward focused instead of comfortable with where they're at. So like it's always been very open that like I get as much value out of the group as anyone, if not more so. And so, one of the big things that we believe in Uncaged is the law of averages, which says like, the better we all are individually, the better we will be collectively. And the better we all are collectively, the better we will be individually. And so I think that's been something that I've been very advantageous on protecting is if you were to think about average, and average doesn't mean what's in your bank account. It doesn't really mean the knowledge that you have. There's a lot of things that people would consider someone as being like a KPI, if you will, on like, okay, what does this person do to bring us our average up or our average down? And for us, it goes way further than just how much money do you have? Because we got some guys, that are making 50, 60 grand a year, all the way up to some guys doing $100 million a year in their businesses and everyone in between. And so it's like, well, fuck, how do you get an average on that? And it's more about the mindset on the growth. It's because an average for someone that's A, willing to do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it, B, willing to take accountability on their shortcomings, C, understanding the speed in which we move to grow. There's like a lot that goes into it that I think a lot of people don't even take into consideration. And to your point, you've been in a lot of other groups, or maybe not a lot, but at least several other groups. And I think that's kind of what you were kind of touching on. And in that thought process, when you sit down at a table with guys that are based on other KPIs, money, success, years in business, whatever, what's kind of your approach? Um, like you, Philip, making sure that you're constantly increasing the average of the men that you're surrounding yourself with?
I always just try and pour in from my perspective. I realize I may not be the smartest one there. I may not be the most successful in different areas of life, but I've always went with the idea that I can bring some kind of perspective. I could learn probably some business aspect from even a kid. They might give me some kind of thought that triggers an idea. Oh, this is a way I could look at that. I never thought about it from that angle, rather than being like, well, what do you know? You haven't even started a business. Are you oh, you've only built $1 million business? Like, I'm not looking at it from that angle. I'm looking at it, what idea can you give me that will make me move forward? And so that's what I do for myself. Like, what idea can I give somebody else to think from a different perspective that will allow them to move forward? Because I believe, our mind is what limits us. And so if we can't think of a new perspective, if we are stuck here with the blinders on, then we aren't able to see a bigger picture and see a different way of looking at a problem. And so having the group, and then so for myself personally, I like to try and come in from that different angle. I come from a corporate background. I come from an engineering background as well, which a lot of people don't have that kind of background. So I can bring that perspective in that a lot of business owners that went straight out of high school or maybe didn't even finish high school and went straight into business, they don't have that structure necessarily or that logical thought process. So I can bring that in and bring that value. And so I just think about what angle can I bring rather than, oh, I don't have that same value or I haven't had that same success. And I realize as well that, and I'm humble enough to say, okay, I'm not as successful. So maybe I don't necessarily have the right, but I still just share it anyways, because you just never know what that thought could trigger for somebody that actually has the experience and knowledge that maybe they were turned off from that thought process just because of they're so ingrained in that thing in the moment.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's, one of the cool things about this group is there's men from all different personalities, perspectives, personas. Like there's always a different angle that you can hear. And regardless to your point, like, because I struggled with that for a while. I was like, man, what value do I bring some of these guys that are 8, 9 figure earners? And then I was like, dude, holy shit. Cause like it happened one day. It was like, fuck, like I might not ever be able to support these guys except for once a year, once every 6 months, once every 24 months. But that one thing that I'm able to support them in is a multi 6 figure deal or a 7 figure deal to them, right? Like you
Hmm.
look at these guys that are further along and it might take significantly longer for a deal to work out to add value to them. But the value that you bring is exponentially larger, which is really, really cool. But also, to just give a major shout out to the quality of men that Uncaged is attracting is it's just that. Because if we were to all be sitting at this like table, right? And everyone's coming to the table saying, like, hey, what can I take from this? What can I take from this? What can you do for me? What can you do for me? You're going to end up at a table of just crickets. Just everyone's sitting there waiting
Yeah.
on someone else to come save them. Whereas if you have a table full of people all saying, how do I add value? 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 And everyone's pouring value into the group, into the group, into the group. Inevitably, you're going to walk away with 10 times more value received than you ever gave. You're only giving value on your specific perspective, persona, personality, whatever, that one topic, whatever, that one skill set that you have, but you're receiving information from all angles. That's how we grow. And so, for me, like it takes people understanding that. And it seems like you learned that lesson at either, well, at both a very young age, but also like freshly into this entrepreneurial journey, which to be quite frank is not easy. So like, what's it been like being surrounded by people? Because, you know, to the point, like, man, like I just got off of recording an episode and Asa was like, bro, y'all are my best friends. He's like, I came in here with like one concept of like what I was going to acquire from this group. And then, you know, I've got men shooting me texts. I mean, like, hey, bro, just want to let you know I love you. Like, they're like, that doesn't happen, and because like, not to shit on anyone I grew up with but like I look at all different aspects of these men's lives. And, we have these friend groups that we've grown up with, and you can't go be like, yo, bro, I just closed like a $40,000 deal or this or that. Cause like they're gonna be like,
Yeah.
man, like they're just trying to one up us, or you think you're better than us, or you're just out here bragging. Where it's like, no, man, like I worked really hard on this, and this like reward is just proof that like I did something right. And like that's exciting to me. And so what's it kind of been like for you surrounding yourself with some of these guys, no matter where on the spectrum they are, that are all just focused on forward progressing and like seeing these guys, like you're building genuine relationships with these guys.
Man, it has been incredible. It is like just like you said, there's not a lot of people that you can talk to, and whether it's a $400 deal, $4,000 deal, $400,000 deal, you can still talk to everybody. And the guy that's doing 400,000 when it's your first $400 deal, they're congratulating you like, yeah, let's get it, keep going after it. And they're encouraging you versus your friend group that isn't around all that just has the W-2 job. They don't get it. They don't understand the struggle there. And when they see the $400 job, they're like, really? Just $400? It's like, dude, you don't understand what it takes. So it's been incredible to be around men like that. And I've been around other groups where it's like you got, kind of crapped on if you weren't the $400,000 deal kind of thing. And it's nice to be with the group that really just supports no matter what. And then they encourage you to keep, pushing yourself to level up. As men, that's what we want to do. As entrepreneurs, we want to continue to level up and see what that next thing is. And so that's probably been the biggest thing for me is that people can give, again, that different perspective, that different light to open up my vision of what is actually true and possible out there. You don't realize that, but all the different backgrounds just helps out so much to see the different possibilities. And there isn't just one way to make it to success for you in whatever shape and form that is.
100%, man. Yeah, no, I agree. And that's what's been cool about this. I told the story not too long ago, but you get around some of these people that are doing some incredible things, and arguably they're all in the group for one reason or another. Like maybe making money is not their big ass problem. Like they are looking for more. But you see some of these guys who, from an Instagrammable standpoint, has everything, has it
Hmm.
all figured out, has the multi-million-dollar house, has the, driving the $500,000 cars, has the assets, the vacation homes and stuff like that. And, you see sometimes that they hide behind some of that traditionally because there's this other part of their life that's struggling. And for them, they want to feel that level of quote unquote success. And so you can go down this rabbit hole where you start chasing those things to take attention away from where they might what they might find if they keep searching in your life. And so it's been really cool to see, again, guys from all walks of life like set their ego aside. And I don't know, man. I don't know if it's like we attract it. I don't know if it's like it's the straw that broke the camel's back and they're finally like, fuck it. Like, this is my last shot. Like, let me get vulnerable and see if this helps. But like, it's been really, really cool to see that the men in Uncaged aren't scared to admit where they're wrong, aren't
Yeah.
scared to ask for help, and aren't scared to like put their neck out there and make an attempt to look like a fool, but trying for like a true ethically and morally positioned place. But and I think you're one of them. Like I think you're a great dude. I think a lot of people trust you when you list when you speak. And as we go through this, like I think that you'll eventually be finding your voice on like what it is that you're searching for. But the most important thing is like understanding what success looks like to you, because for all of us that might look different, and like I think that inside the group, like that actually produces like a really positive environment to be able to speak on like what success looks like. Because I mean, again, the last conversation I had with someone on the channel was, the fact was like, man, at first I had everything from the outside looking in. And like I got in this group and I was like, oh shit, that's not what success is. And then it's like perspective shift. And then we've been on a journey for a year ever since. Like what's that journey been like for you, bro?
So for me, I mean, really building out the business, it's always been like something that I've wanted to do to be able to have an example for my kids and the opportunity if they want to take over the business. Of course, the money there, the money aspect that comes as well. But the biggest thing is I wanted to be able to create impact, for my family, of course, but also for others. Kind of growing up one of the things I thought about, and now it's kind of laughable because it was like, I'd love to be able to stroke a check for $5,000 to help somebody get a car. No way you can get a car, like a used car, for 5,000 anymore. Like you're gonna get a pretty bad car, so it might be like 15,000 now, but still kind of that same thing, just to be able to help people out because I have the wealth there and I won't even notice it in my bank account. But the biggest thing that I've come to realize is that I was kind of holding my business over here and I was taking care of this by myself because my wife is very much wants security, wants stability. And so I would hide a lot of the business stuff over here. I would deal with it by myself. But I realized in really talking with the group and stuff and getting encouragement from my accountability partner out of the group to talk to her about these things, while she's still not on board like I am with the business, understandably, she's not in the day to day and everything. She has come around to it a lot more just from simple conversations, just talking about things, not, and I still don't share exactly everything because I mean it's too much to bog her down with that. She's not going to want to listen to it all because it's like trying to talk about math to somebody who's an art person. They don't want to hear about it. Talk about Star Wars to somebody who's not into it. So I don't tell her every single thing, not to hide it, but as I've started to share more, talk about wins, even talk about some of the losses, the things I'm going through, she's gotten on board just a little bit more every single day. And anytime I, let her know now, like, hey, I've got a podcast I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to this networking thing. I got to spend time away from the family. She's starting to understand it more. It used to be like such a nightmare, but like, okay, I'm going to wait till the last minute, try and bring her up when she's in good mood, just like wait till the stars aligned. And it would just be terrible every single time. But as I started talking to her more on a more frequent basis and really pushing myself to do that, and again, thanks to the group, now every time we have the conversation, there's times that it's still like, oh my gosh, you're doing that, but I've learned how to start navigating those conversations more. And so I have to give that to the group, that the group really allowed, helped encourage me to do that. And I got the support from the group on how can I talk about that, what ways can I go about making that a little bit better, what should I share, how much should I share. I was able to talk to the group about that. And there's guys that are like me where their wife doesn't necessarily support them on it. They don't like, she doesn't hate me for doing it or anything, but she's not like my cheerleader. And then there's other guys that have the cheerleaders for wives and everything. And so it's still good to have all those perspectives, but it feels like I can talk with the guys about this and kind of vent a little bit. So then it's a less of a burden when I don't have her cheering for me necessarily on the business, because now I've got a group of guys that I can talk to about it and then realize it's not just me. It's not just my wife. It's kind of just life at the end of the day. And these things are just a part of it. And so I can move forward rather than being bogged down and feel like, oh, woe is me kind of thing. Now it's like, hey, it's just part of life. We just got to deal with it. We'll keep moving forward. Just like following up, people are going to say no, 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 and eventually they'll say yes. It's just something you have to do. Keep touching base with people, and eventually you're going to get the business. The business is going to grow, but it just takes the consistent action, and being a part of the group and hearing other men kind of struggling with that same thing helped me to realize that, and now has really changed my marriage from the marriage business relationship perspective.
No doubt. And it's funny that you, whether it was consciously or subconsciously, just kind of compared your marriage to to sales. And it's funny because there's a lot of truth in that. Whereas if you look at sales, typically the reason someone says no is because they just don't have enough information.
Yeah.
Your wife is going to say, hey, no, because she just doesn't have enough information.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's up to you to figure out what that information is, right? And
Yeah.
because the thing is with anything in life, a lot of guys see grass is always greener. Like, oh man, I would love to have a wife that is super, super, super supportive. But then, like, we got guys in the group where you can talk to, like, one of the guys is so supportive, it like pisses him off. Like, she's so she's so supportive. She's like, I trust you. I don't I don't need to see the numbers. I don't want to see the bank account. Like, I trust you wholeheartedly. Like, and he's like, but I want you to see the, like, I want you to ask questions. And so it is funny to your point to get all those perspectives. And it's funny too to like see some of these like hyper ends of the spectrum start getting better and better and better, no matter which direction they're at. It's kind of the same concept. Like, you see two guys in the gym. One was a super, super, super fat dude getting in shape. And then one was like a skin and bones getting in shape. And it's like, how do you compare which one was like a harder deal? Like, is it
Yeah.
harder to lose 100 pounds or is it harder to gain 100 pounds? Right. Like, there's this conversation that we have, like,
Mm.
we can sit here and look at, oh, how hard something might be, but motherfucker, if you don't ever do anything to change it, to work on it, even if it's just a 1%, then what's that look like? Because like that's one of the things too. Like, I'm not saying that these conversations create bad days for you, but like the way I like look at our bad days is it's like the bison. Like, you notice a storm's coming, you turn to run towards it so you can get to it quicker, get through it faster, and then get back on your life. And so for me, it was like, how could I make my bad days 1% better? Because
Mm.
then, like, yeah, it's still a bad day, but it ain't really that bad. And you do that enough times, like, yes, you're gonna have bad days, things you can't control. But like a lot of what makes things bad days is our own mental mindset based around it. And so, no, I think it's really cool that you're getting around guys that are pressuring you to step out of your comfort zone and have some of these conversations sooner than later, and just kind of putting some things into perspective. But I also think it's cool that like you're learning that there are things that, like, so for me, for communication with your spouse is like, okay, baby, like, I need you to tell me like what would make you feel more comfortable, because like we as men think we know the answer that they're looking for, know the path to get there, and they may not want that at all, because we had one of the guys in the group, to his point, he didn't talk to her about business at all. Like, he was like a fucking mute when it came to that.
Mm.
And I was like, have you even had this conversation with your wife? And because he said, the way he phrased it, he goes, she has enough demons of her own. I don't want to give her any of my demons, because business, money, stress, losing deals, money coming, money going. Sometimes there's more month at the end of the money, like whatever the case is. And he's like, she's got enough demons of her own. I don't want to give her any of mine. And I was like, well, what if one of her demons is that her husband doesn't talk to her about money or about
Mm.
work? Like, we take all this stuff for assumption, and like, bro, like, we're men and they're women. Their brains work completely different than ours. Who are we to
Yeah.
think that we fucking know what they want? So communication's everything, bro.
Oh yeah, and they've got everything open, all the tabs open, right? So they're thinking about that, even though they might have the other 100 demons. That's still one of those tabs open, like all the time. I mean, I was actually talking with a buddy today about how like my wife will like randomly bring up about what would you do if we got divorced, or usually it's if I died, like what would you do? And so I'll joke with her sometimes, like and be like, I'd find a big titted woman and get married again, like. And then she usually shuts up about it, but it's like that just for some reason that's something like a tab that just open and she wants to know just like she wants to know she's loved. I got to tell her all the time. I got to show her there's different ways I have to do it, and of course everybody's a little bit different, but I find at least with my wife that like she wants that reassurance that I love her, and I have to tell her, I have to show her, I have to do different things so she can continue to feel that love. I can't just literally be a husband that, the house, is provided for, money's coming in, stuff like that. There's other things I have to do for her to feel that love. And I can't also just say I love you every single day. So it's just yeah, the communication, like you said, though, is
Yeah.
so important, and it's always a little bit different. You just have to keep that communication flow going, and they think completely different than us.
Yeah. And I think the big thing about all of this is like, so I'm a big fan of like taking extreme ownership, like, so even like explaining some of the stuff that, you just said, like, maybe it doesn't make sense to you or whatever the case is. Like, at the end of the day, is if you want this to become something better, if you want this to improve, extreme ownership says it's now your responsibility to figure out the solution to that problem, right? Because like, even some of that stuff that you just explained to me gives me like separation anxiety or abandonment, trauma, stuff like that, where she thinks you're going to leave her or
Mm,
whatever the case is, and like she has an attachment to you. So like, it scares her to think that something's going to happen. And so it's like, okay, cool. If that's the case, I don't know. I'm not necessarily a therapist, but I talk to guys and
oh yeah.
people all day long. And like, so some of that stuff kind of that made sense to me from a psychological standpoint. So it's like, okay, knowing this now, how do I dive deeper in figuring out how to solve the problem? Because again, that's what this group's all about. To your point, like you got guys of all different walks of life. Everyone has their own problems. And some people have problems that you would never trade for, or like whatever the case is. But the biggest common denominator in the group specifically is doing the fucking work. Okay, we have a problem. Now let's find the solution.
Yeah.
Once we have the solution, we get to work and we solve that problem and then we move on to number next. And I think
Mm,
that's been like the biggest thing because, to your point, uh, like what does that dream life look like to you? And is your wife in agreement with that? I'm a very big believer that couples should go through the 30-day challenge together. I think they should do it specific days, like the whiteboard scenario, day one. Like I believe that y'all should do it individually, like without each other knowing, and then like y'all compare notes and y'all like see what is a part of each other's dream life that's not about the other, and then y'all kind of refine it and do one together. Because the thing is like if you look at a relationship, if you share the same dream goal, if she has her goal and you have your goal and y'all are working on it, y'all are there's still all this distance between y'all,
yeah.
right? Whereas if y'all share that dream goal, as y'all go towards that dream goal together, you start to get unified. And so it's like stuff like that like it doesn't matter where you're at. We've got some guys in this group, to your point, that could buy the $15,000 car for probably 10 or 15 people and not even think twice about it. They're going through some of the same relationship shit you are, or whatever the case
Mm,
is. So understanding that there's levels to this and stuff like that, and giving you the ability to see that target in clear vision makes life a lot easier. Because like we always say, if you don't know what you're aiming for, you'll miss 100% of the shots that you take. But you might even see the target and be shooting at it and missing it because it's not really in focus. And so you get around some of these guys that have been, there's guys in the group that have been through it, are going through it, or will go through it. And so when you surround yourself by those kinds of guys, you get to bounce ideas off each other and hopefully solve that problem way quicker than you would have if you ever tried it on your own.
yeah. For sure. So I want to go back real quick. So yeah, I know sometimes I mentioned about the joke. Sometimes I joke, sometimes I actually take it serious and see
Yeah.
like what can I do
Yeah.
better. One of the things actually, which was a part of like the group chat, part of the group, was that something came up about like dates and stuff like this, and my wife, I don't. It's really strange. I try and set them up, but sometimes she's like, "Oh no, I don't want to burden the family." It's really strange. Don't ask me on that. Still working through that process to do like date nights, just her and I, and we got the young kids. But so we did like a day date. I just told her like, hey, let's meet here at Starbucks, and like I could tell afterwards she really appreciated it. She tried to brush it off like it was no big deal, but I went ahead and did it because some of the guys in the group were talking about them. Like, that's a good reminder. I hadn't done that in a while. Let's just do it. She was actually getting off work early, so I'm like, hey, I'll meet you here and everything. But to the dream life, that's kind of another thing that's been something slowly working on. Like I just try and ask her questions because right now she's a simple lady. I mean, she's good with where she's at. We've got a house that we've got like halfway paid off. We've got some property and stuff like that, and we live right by her family. So she's good. There's only like little things here and there she talks about wanting, but I'm like a huge achiever, and so for me it's really like I see us having like a homestead, having 1,000 acres, things like that, going on quarterly trips, so whether it's around the world or whatever, and that's just my dreams, and I'm working to try and build up to what are her dreams as well, so we can work on those together. But I just try and ask her, I just try to ask her about those dreams, those goals that she has, and then I share what my thoughts are, my goals and stuff, and see what she says and see how we can kind of build towards that. And a lot of it's just for her being simple. She's a homebody, so she likes to stay at home. She loves family, which I love family too, but I'm like, I want you to do experiences. And so we just continue to work on that together. And so right now, yeah, like you said, there's like she's got no dream, so to speak, or at least she's not telling me, and I'm like trying to build this dream, and but I'm trying to bring her along the way because I don't want that separation and almost like that she's left behind kind of thing. And I know we've been married for about 6 years, and really my self-development journey started very shortly before we got married. So I've developed myself so much over the last 6 years. And actually, a few years ago, I had somebody mention this, and I never thought about it, that I'm developing myself so much, and the person that she married is not the same person, while she hasn't developed near as much. And she, and what they're saying, kind of the perspective that they gave me was that maybe she feels like she's no longer good enough. Maybe she feels like she's not changing and growing like I am, and therefore, I'm gonna leave her at some point. And so it's like, I need to make sure I reassure her on that that's not the case, and talk through it and work with her. And to go to your point of like, working on separate goals are so far apart. And I think there's a lot of people that one party wants to get better. And so think about that as well. Like, how can you bring them in? How can you talk about these things so that way they know like you're doing what the purpose behind that is for? Because like you said, the whole separation anxiety, whatever it may be, they may be thinking, oh, they're trying to get better so that way they can leave me one day, or so they can do this other thing, or they're going to forget about me, or they're going to get bored with me, whatever that is. So it's very important to communicate and bring the other party in your relationship, or in our case, our wives, on board with everything that we're doing. At least keep them in the loop some way, shape, or form, so they don't feel like we're just continuing to separate from them and just change completely, because that would be scary on the outside, because entrepreneurship is a huge self-development journey. And if you become somebody different, somebody well, just somebody different, because as you build a bigger business, you become more direct. There's so many changes that happen, and you have less time, and it comes off from the outside perspective that you just have no time for that person, that you don't care about them anymore, when that's not the case. There's just so many quick decisions you have to make, and you're having to think a couple years out, 10 years out, whatever it is. And so you're not thinking about there in the present moment a lot of times. So you have to try and be coming back to that and have that communication loop down packed.
100%. And I say it all the time, like no fucking husband and wife like wakes up on a Tuesday and's like, let's work on ourselves together.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so there's always one that starts down that personal development route first. And then typically you always have to be cautious because then you have resentment from the one looking back, being like, come on, dude, like get it
Mm-hmm.
together, like you lazy
Mm-hmm.
ass, like whatever. Or then sometimes you have the one that's like sitting at home being like, why are you leaving me? Right. And
Yeah.
so it's definitely a very, very delicate line. And, if I could give you any piece of advice too, because this is something that I have experienced in my life. But also like I've been able to help a few other guys kind of go through this process is like when you deal with women like that who they are very introverted, they are very family oriented, they are very wholesome. It is hard to kind of like want more and more and more. And so like for them, if you're having these conversations in the home, this is the place that they have been taught their whole life to protect the the vibe, if you will, the
Mm-hmm.
vibrations and the frequencies of the house. So when you bring this like challenging conversation in, it changes the mood in the house. And
Mm-hmm.
so then you have this defensive, protective mom mode, protective wife mode that goes, no, 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 we have to protect the sanctuary. Like we have to keep the frequency of this home secure. Whereas if you can technically manipulate some psychological strategies and remove them from that house that they're there to protect, where now they don't have this like fear. It's like a dog. You see a dog out of the park and they're incredible and then you go to the house and they won't let you enter. Like that, they have been given that place to protect, and
Hmm.
that's their job. And so, like, if you take them someplace, for me, this conversation was done in Belize at our favorite, like, over the water, sports bar. We were out, like, got our drinks. We went and sat on the pier and just had like a 2.5, 3 hour long conversation about our goals and our dreams. And we were watching a storm come in out at ocean. And like, because of that experience, she could be herself. She didn't have to be a role or a responsibility. She didn't have to be the protector of the home and, the mama bear, and then also the champion to her husband. Like, she could be herself, but then you have the dopamine release of like the feel good drugs of like, man, we're in an incredible place. We're surrounded by good people doing fun stuff. Like, we got to take advantage of that and ultimately had one of the best conversations of our entire life. So like, one of the things I always recommend when it comes time to have those conversations and stuff like that is remove them from that place of protection and put them in this place where like they get to experience, like, obviously, like happy drugs, like happiness, excitement, like
Yeah.
this serotonin, dopamine release and stuff like that. I think we would go a long way for
Well, that's a
sure.
great idea. I never thought about that. So right there, proof proof of the group, right?
Yeah.
Different perspectives. Yeah.
Yeah, man, absolutely, dude. And it's I mean, man, like, it's been a great conversation with you. And is there I want to be respectful of your time. But like, is there anything that we can do for you to pay you back for the time you spent here with us on the channel?
No, man, this has been great. Just have a conversation like this. I hope that I mean I'm all about pouring into others, so that's what I hope that this conversation has done is help trigger somebody to take that next step to be a part of a group like Uncaged, whether it's Uncaged or another group. Just get around a group of people that are where you're at or trying to go where you want to go as well. That's the most important thing that you can ever do for your life is to get around like-minded people. There's too many people here in this world that are negative. They're gonna put you down, especially if you're a go-getter, you're an achiever, you're an entrepreneur. They're gonna put you down left and right, and you're getting put down left and right for having no's, for people just ignoring you. So get around a group like Uncaged to help you grow because you don't realize how much you're missing out on and how many opportunities are lost simply because you don't know what you don't know.
Facts, bro. That right there was a good key takeaway. So, dude, I appreciate it. And if y'all are listening, if there was anything Philip said that gave you encouragement or peace of mind or whatever the case is, please reach out to him, shoot him a DM, give him a tag, whatever, and just like let him know. Thank him for that because that's what's really it's great to know that like things that you're doing. It's a reinsurement that like you're making a difference in this world. So, hey, Philip, absolutely appreciate you. Had a great conversation here. And if you're listening, give this episode a like, a share, a comment. Like, we're trying to get information like this to as many men as possible, and you're a piece of that. So if you got anything out of this, please pass it on, and we'll just keep knocking these down because I believe that hearing perspectives from people like Philip is exactly what this world needs to hear. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.